Good afternoon. As all of you are aware, Taunton was struck by horrific acts of violence last night. 3 people are dead and 5 others were injured, some very seriously. My office, in conjunction with the Massachusetts State Police and Taunton Police Department, are in the process of interviewing scores of witnesses and the surviving victims. As with any incident of this scale that also involved a law enforcement shooting, my office will in the coming weeks release a full report on all the facts and circumstances of this tragic incident. Until that point, I hope you will all understand that we are limited in what we can discuss prior to the completion of an extensive and thorough investigation. At this time, I will discuss the status of our investigation and identify the victims. Shortly after 6 p.m. yesterday, Arthur Justin DeRosa, 28, a lifelong Taunton resident, was attending his child's soccer practice at a field on Merrick Street in Taunton. At some point while he was there, he left the field, got into a 2010 Honda Accord owned by the mother of his child, and began driving along Merrick Street. While driving, DeRosa struck a parked 2000 Ford Ranger pickup truck and then exited his vehicle. DeRosa then began attempting to enter various homes along Merrick Street. At around 6:30 p.m., DeRosa eventually gained entry to a home at 270 Merrick Street where Patricia and Kathleen Slavin were having dinner. It is unclear at this time how DeRosa gained entry to the home. Once inside the home, DeRosa stabbed both women and then ran from the residence. Both women were transported to Martin Hospital in Taunton, where Patricia Slavin was pronounced dead at 7:52 p.m. Kathleen Slavin was med-flighted to Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, where she remains in serious condition. DeRosa, according to witness statements, attempted to assault and steal the vehicles of multiple individuals who were driving or stopped along Merrick Street. After failing to gain access to any of the vehicles, DeRosa returned to the Honda Accord and sped off towards the Silver City Galleria in Taunton. At approximately 6:40 p.m., DeRosa crashed into the front door of Macy's department store at the mall. DeRosa exited his vehicle, ran into Macy's, and physically assaulted at least 3 women inside the store. The women all sustained non-life-threatening injuries during the assault. At least 1 employee came to the assistance of one of those women. 2 have been released from the hospital. DeRosa then exited the mall before briefly re-entering near Bertucci's Italian restaurant. Once inside the restaurant, DeRosa armed himself with a knife from the restaurant and attacked a waitress, later identified as Miss Sheena Savoy. Miss Savoy was stabbed multiple times. During the stabbing of Miss Savoy, George Heath, who was having dinner with his wife, intervened in an attempt to stop the assault. Mr. Heath was then stabbed in the head and mortally wounded. At this time, off-duty Plymouth County Sheriff's Deputy James Creed was also having dinner at Petrucci's. He displayed his badge, identified himself as a law enforcement officer, and gave multiple commands for DeRosa to drop the knife. When DeRosa refused to comply, Deputy Creed shot him once in the abdomen. DeRosa was rushed to Charlton Memorial Hospital in Fall River, where he was pronounced dead at 8 p.m. Mr. Heath was transported to Martin Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 8:07 p.m. Miss Savoy was med-flighted to Rhode Island Hospital, where she remains in serious condition. We have learned from family members that DeRosa checked himself into Morton Hospital Monday night and was released early Tuesday morning. His sister has indicated that he was acting in a disturbed manner and making irrational statements earlier on Monday, and she suggested to him that he needed to seek help. We are in the process of following up on that information as part of the investigation. The only bright spots in this terrible incident is the conduct of 2 individuals at Bertucci's restaurant. I would like to comment first on the actions of Mr. Heath. He was eating dinner with his wife, as any of us could have been doing. He saw the waitress being stabbed, and without concern for his own safety, he intervened and quite possibly saved her life and the lives of others, including his own wife. This shows extraordinary character and courage that tragically cost him his life. Coincidentally, a good friend of my wife's was friends with Mr. Heath and indicated to my wife that she was not surprised by his actions because that's the type of man he was. His actions of heroism should not be forgotten. I would also like to commend the conduct of Deputy Plymouth County Sheriff James Creed. He was also having dinner when confronted by this extraordinarily violent and dangerous situation. He reacted in a professional but heroic manner by taking the only course of conduct that was available to him at that time. He prevented further carnage from occurring by his actions. My thoughts and prayers go out to all the people impacted by this horrendous event, especially the victims, the family members of the deceased and injured, along with members of the community. I would now like to introduce Mayor Thomas Hoy from Taunton to say a few words, and then I will take a few questions. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. DA. As I said last night, just a senseless, tragic event has infiltrated our city. First and foremost, my thoughts go out to all the victims, Patricia Slavin and George Heath, and all those that were injured. Mr. Heath is certainly a hero, much as the DA described. He stepped up. He prevented a tragic situation from getting worse. He should be commended, and he'll always be remembered for his heroic actions. I'd also like to commend the Taunton Police Department, the State Police, police from our surrounding communities, our Taunton Fire Department, EMS services from all over that responded to this truly hectic scene. It was truly something you wouldn't even script a movie about, you know, the multiple crime scenes. But I have to commend the professionalism of all of our emergency responders. It was just beyond reproach, and I can't say enough about it. But again, today we begin to pick up the pieces. We put crisis intervention teams in place in our schools for those that may have witnessed the events or be related to any of the victims. We've also offered services to the Silver City Galleria Mall to their employees as well. So just a senseless tragedy, and today we begin to pick up the pieces and move forward. But our thoughts and prayers are with all the victims. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This time I'll take a few questions if you have any.
I think my biggest question, Tom, and everyone's going to have.
1 second.
Do you have any indication, or have you spoken to Morton Hospital about the decision to release him after he checked himself in within a psychiatric ward?
That's under investigation. I think I've commented all I can with respect to that aspect of the case. Family members were interviewed. I indicate what they said, so we'll be following up on that, obviously. Yes?
What are the state's laws in regards to when a person seeks some mental help? Does the hospital have any authority to sort of keep them without, against their will, per se?
Adam, I don't want to comment on that at this point. Obviously, that's an aspect of the case that people are interested in, but we're going to follow up on that, and I'm just going to leave my comments to what I stated earlier, that he went there and was released, and he had some a statement from the sister with respect to her observations of his condition on Monday.
Was there any reason why he left the soccer team, or anything that might have set him off?
It's unclear. This appears to be an irrational series of actions. But we're going to continue to investigate. It's difficult to comprehend what this man did without what appears at this point any rational motive. You heard what I just described. Assaulting people, trying to carjack cars, running up to houses, stabbing 2 people who he apparently doesn't even know in the home, driving a vehicle into the mall. It's beyond comprehension what the man did.
So he has a very, Mr. DeRose has a very long record, several charges, many of them dismissed, but assaults, BDW, he's got 3 felonies on his employee record.
Well, I mean, with respect to his record, there is nothing. He has not been in the criminal justice system for over 6 years. There are some matters on his record, include a number of dismissals. So that does not appear to be connected to his rampage.
But it's a pattern, though.
Well, all I can say to you, Byron, is that there's no records, there's no activity in the criminal justice system for over 6 years. The investigation is ongoing. I don't know what he's been up to lately in terms of non-criminal behavior, but I outlined the comments of his family, so I don't know if I would say it's a pattern of behavior. Again, this conduct is beyond comprehension. So I think his record, or what he was accused of or did, does not appear to be connected to this rampage.
DA, the sheriff's weapon that was discharged, personal weapon, service weapon, do you know?
I'm not sure at this point.
Give us more information about Deputy Creed, how long he's been with the department.
Well, I think that information would be available through the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department. I'm sure they'll provide information. We've identified him. Thank God he acted in the way that he did and reacted the way he did in, as I said, a professional but necessary manner to save the lives, potentially, of other people in that restaurant.
Was security protocol in the mall followed to the T, or was there anything left to be desired?
I would just say that you're dealing with a unique set of circumstances that you all can understand. Can you comprehend what this man did? Drove into the mall, into the doors of Macy's, somehow got out of the car, assaulted 3 women within seconds or minutes, runs down the street, runs into Bertucci's. I mean, people are looking at different things, so there's no indication that people were not acting appropriately there, but keep in mind, this is 16 hours old. I'm trying to provide some information, but this investigation will continue, but the facts, what appears to be the irrational nature of this behavior speaks for itself.
So do you know anything about him having received a phone call while he was at the soccer field and that somehow set him off?
Indication he received one. I'm not sure if that set him off at this point. We're, again, continuing to investigate that.
So
Who is it from? Who is it from?
with regard to the soccer game, could you be specific as to anything happened that may have triggered this?
That's being investigated. Again, this just happened 16 hours ago or thereabouts. My understanding is he was watching one of his children participate in practice and left, and this series of events happened with his irrational, violent behavior.
Was the waitress Sheena Savoy at Bertucci's, she pregnant? Can you confirm that?
I cannot confirm that.
With regards to his criminal record, apart from jail time, he did display this sort of irrational, aggressive behavior noted in a lot of the police reports in his criminal cases. Did the court ever consider ordering a mental health evaluation after any of his dangerousness hearings? And if so, why or why not?
The matters are being reviewed. That's unclear at that point. As I said, we're going back over 6 years with respect to some of those matters. So I think that's unclear at this point to tie his record to these series of events. There are many people that behave in a dysfunctional criminal way who would not act like this. So what has transpired since then, it's unclear, because from our perspective, he has not been in the criminal justice system since early 2010.
Tom, just to be clear, did he use his own knife at the Myrick Street attack, and then he grabbed another knife when he was at Bertucci's? Is that how
He used a knife in the Myrick's attack, and it appears the investigation indicates that he got a knife from inside Bertucci's that was used on the victims in Bertucci's.
Did he grab a knife inside the slab at home then? He didn't have one on him at that time?
That's still being investigated, but clearly, from what our understanding of the investigation, the Bertucci's knife was from Bertucci's.
Did he have a weapon in Macy's?
And do you know what prompted him to leave Macy's and move on?
I don't, other than did he have a weapon? It appears at this point that one was not brandished in Macy's. But again, these people are being interviewed. A woman, an employee of Macy's, I did watch some of the interview last night, intervened in some fashion. He was coming after one of the victims, so I give her credit also. The civilians, people stepped up. I mean, you got some, what appears to be somebody engaging in maniacal behavior, crazy behavior. She stepped in. Does not appear he used a weapon, despite the injuries of those 3 people in Macy's, and then armed himself inside of Bertucci's, which is right down the way from Macy's.
What were those injuries in Macy's then? Was he using his fists, or what was he doing?
Some type of physical assault. Again, 2 of the people have been treated and released. Again, we don't have every precise piece of information because we're continuing to investigate it, trying to provide you within reason as much information as I can.
Do you have any idea how long he was in Bertucci's from the time he went in until the time he was done?
Well, I'm sure it seemed like forever to those poor people inside there, but I bet it was a quick period of time. There's an indication that he entered with a purposeful look, approached several waitresses, armed himself, started the violent assault on the waitress, and then the other events flowed from there. Gentleman intervened, sadly, heroically, but sadly at the expense of his own life, and then the deputy came into action making these observations and shot him to death.
Any indication why that was targeted near the entranceway, or is there any clue as to why she?
I don't, it's unclear. There is some indication that he was approaching the area where the silverware is kept. Again, this is preliminary, and was focusing on one waitress and then turned his attention to somebody else who might have asked him, "May I help you?" And then the attack flowed from there. Does not appear to be the case, does not appear that he knew any of these people at this point.
Any indication that DeRosa was suicidal?
At this point, other than driving your vehicle through in Macy's, I don't know how you characterize that. I'm not aware of any outburst that would be consistent with that, but again, we are, given the gravity of this matter, wanted to address you, but we're going to continue this investigation. We have a number of the critical witnesses either deceased or in the hospital still.
Tom,
Yes.
did you say like what he said was this that led to those concerns that his sister had?
Can I say what were the concerns?
Sister had, yeah.
Apparently his irrational behavior in comments to her on Monday. I mean, she was interviewed, interviewed, I think, by media and the law enforcement, but statements and comments that led her to say, you need help.
What did he say?
I wouldn't get into the specifics now. I'm not sure if I have all of the answers, but something that, from her perspective, caused her concern, it appears, with respect to his mental state, what he was saying.
Tom, every time we cover these events, it seems as though mental health is involved. There's an issue. Broadly, what does this say about what we need to do in regards to treating people better with mental health, and especially here in Bristol County and Massachusetts?
Well, that's premature because while those issues arise, you've heard the facts laid out. I would hope a rational person is not engaging in that conduct. Now, whether he had mental health issues, we don't know those specifics now. So to reach
His
conclusion...
family members say that, his friends say that. We know he was at the hospital that week. Certainly, I mean, I don't think it's a fair jump.
Well, fair jump for what? To say that he...
That he obviously had some sort of mental issue.
The facts speak for themselves unless information is revealed. So someone going around stabbing people he doesn't know and carjacking people, doing all these what appears to be irrational, unconnected things, certainly may have mental health issues. Beyond commenting on how the system could have dealt with him, that's speculation at this point.
Tom, you said that he took his car, the Honda that belonged to the mother of his child. What was his living situation?
I'm not sure the specifics of his living situation, but he was there to watch a child participate in soccer practice and had that vehicle at the time.
Was she a fiance?
I'm not sure their precise relationship. She was the mother of the child, of one of his children.
You don't know if they lived together.
Excuse me?
Does his mother live in that church?
I'm not sure about that.
Did the children live with him?
Don't know.
How long did this all play out from? It started at Myrick's till he shot and it was over.
Well, I gave you the time frame, I believe, Adam. Didn't I think it was 6 p.m. The first 6 p.m. Approximately 6 p.m. He's at the soccer practice, and then he ended up around 40 minutes, 45 minutes later at the mall. So that's the approximate time frame, give or take a few minutes.
About an hour.
I'd say about 40, 45 minutes, somewhere in there, up to maybe an hour. But again, those just, and I know you appreciate it, but keep in mind, this just happened. But that's the approximate range of time.
What's your message to the general public who sees this? This could have, like you said earlier, this could have been any of us. What's your message to them? Their fears and
To the kids in the school systems around this area who look at the mall and say, this is a safe haven, we hang out here, we go to the movies. What are you saying to the kids in school right now in Taunton and product with all of them?
Well, I'm not prepared to give any messages right now, respectfully. I would just say that focus on the conduct. People react in different ways. No matter what happens in our country, we are a free country, and in the end, when the dust settles with these horrendous matters, we have to live our lives. I think somebody who engages in this conduct and drives into a mall is engaged in irrational behavior. It's sad that these episodes of some sort seem to happen more frequently around the country, but in the end, you reflect on it, you think about it, but we have to go about living our own lives, because that's in the end what the country is about.
Let's talk about his hospital stay. You characterized his admission as him checking himself in the hospital. Was he released by the hospital? Was it
I think
insurance?
I
Or did he
spoke.
check himself out?
I gave a brief comment about that. That matter is being followed up on. The information from family is that he checked himself into Morton Hospital and was released early Tuesday morning. That's all I'm saying at this point. I'm not drawing any conclusions about what took place there, what happened, or what his condition was. I do not.
All right, guys, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.